Hello, and welcome to this episode of The Profitable Practitioner. I am your host, Maddie. This is a show for health and wellness entrepreneurs to gain insight into what other health and wellness entrepreneurs are doing in their business just through this journey of entrepreneurship, along with conversations with other online experts so that you can really get the tools and support you need to truly grow your practice. So today I had a conversation with Lauren Smit. Lauren is a marketing and mindset coach. She helps women in service based businesses to attract quality clients so that they can build a fulfilled life with family and freedom. She was in the brand and marketing industry for over 8 years before finding her passion for coaching in 2020. She realized how much more of an impact she can make when giving women the tools to build a thriving, successful business where they have time to spend with family but still absolutely love what they do. This was a really great conversation. We dive all into imposter syndrome, the 5 different types of imposter syndrome, and what those might look like. They might be a little surprising to you. I know some of them took me back a little bit because some of them kind of look like you just being successful and like really getting to work at your business, but actually, they might be a way of covering up something deeper. So, I really hope you guys enjoy this conversation and learn a lot from it. All right, guys. Today I am here with Lauren Smit. If you just want to give a little introduction to the audience, that would be perfect.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Lauren Smit and I'm a marketing coach for female entrepreneurs. And I got into coaching in about when I started my own business. I found a coach online. I was in the design industry and marketing strategy, and I just absolutely loved how it transformed everything in my life and not only my business. And so I shifted into coaching, and I just love how it can help us. I have two kids, a little boy, he is now 5, and a little girl who just turned 1, and they're keeping me very busy while I'm running my business. So yeah, that's about me.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. I think one of the hardest jobs in the whole world is being a mom. Plus, on top of it, you're tackling the second hardest, which is being a business owner. So that's a lot going
It
on
is
for sure.
so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So props to you. That pretty much makes you like superwoman, right?
Thank you.
So why don't you just tell us a little bit about the evolution of your business, kind of taking it from that design and marketing, switching over to the coaching. What what was that? What was that like for you? What kind of called you to pull you over to the coaching side?
Yeah, I was starting to struggle with enjoying my business. I was doing a lot of done for you brand design and then some strategy to that, because good design has strategy as well. And I was coaching with one of my coaches, and I was really struggling to enjoy it. And she was asking me, well, what would make it fun? And all the things that made it fun was like the strategy, the problem solving, the mindset pieces. Because we had been coaching, obviously I had been doing my own self-awareness and mindset work, and realized how much that had played a much bigger role in the success of my business than like how to actually do things. And so I took a very long time to decide to shift into coaching. I was looking for all of the signs and all of the reasons, because you don't just want to go ahead and call yourself a coach in this industry. But I was really called to help women in such a more impactful way in their business, instead of just like, hey, here's a beautiful brand, which has a very big impact as well when you reach a certain level, but isn't the thing that really helps you to make your business successful, right? There's so many things to that, and a big part of that is mindset. Another thing that really drew me to it was the imposter syndrome, learning that there were 5 different types. When I learned about the different types, it really made a lot of sense in my business, and why I wasn't taking certain action, why I wasn't setting boundaries, why I was like burning out and feeling like I needed to be on all the time, things like that. And it just really sort of set me free in some sense, and really drove me to then help other women do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. I feel like imposter syndrome is a huge problem for everyone. Like, if you don't have imposter syndrome, then I almost think maybe you're doing something wrong because
Yes.
it's just just part of the it's part of the I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's just part of being a
Yeah,
business owner and part of taking
exactly.
leaps, trying to hit
The
goals that
statistic says Yeah, sorry. The statistic says that 70% of people have imposter syndrome, and I would like definitely agree with you that so many more people actually have it than 70%. I feel like
yeah, that's just the amount of
99% would be
people.
more accurate.
Exactly. That's just the amount of people that are willing to admit to it, right?
Yeah,
And maybe
exactly.
there's a point where you can grow out of it, but in the beginning, I feel like it's everyone. Yeah.
Yeah,
um,
no,
so,
definitely.
so when you talk about imposter syndrome, um, in what ways were you seeing that that was holding you back in your business before you started, or maybe even when it came to getting into coaching?
Yeah, so I know we'll talk about the different types, but one of them that I was experiencing was where I previously found things really easy to do. Like I grew up in a small town. I was like top of my class, or I was second in class. It wasn't very hard for me. I wasn't working hard to be there. I was just naturally there. I was very good at tennis. I was doing music. I was doing all of the things, and it wasn't hard for me to do well. And so then I went to a bigger school. Even then, I can see now how imposter syndrome was impacting me because things came so naturally easy to me. I was then struggling to like take challenges on and to do certain things because I'm so scared of failing, because I was so scared that like I get it wrong and I have to get it right on the first try to be good enough. So a lot of things that I was doing in my business was avoiding like actually showing up or avoiding new things or like doing them, but without the belief that I will actually be good enough. And then so half-heartedly doing that. Another thing is like procrastination. It's also doing like a lot of research to try and make sure that the things that I'm talking about, the things that I'm saying is the right thing, because like I have to say everything right, you know, and that's like really not a growth mindset if you actually think of it, because if you feel like you have to say the right thing now, it needs to be the same thing that you say for the rest of your life, then you're not actually growing, because it's okay to say something now and then be like, oh, actually, I've learned from that. And now, you know, this is better, or this is how I've shifted or grown, or this is what I believe now. So yeah, I was like doing all of those things and really trying to be perfect in some sense to be good enough. And so those were a lot of ways that was like holding me back. But I think like actual things that was holding me back was like not showing up enough, and then like procrastinating and like not being consistent because of the like, then I would do this and then I wouldn't because it wasn't working, and so many things was showing up in my actual business with imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And one thing that kind of popped up for me when you were saying that is I think so often when we're dealing with imposter syndrome and we're taking the time to do all this research, so we show up and say the right thing, what that actually does is that makes us almost like copy other people and take us away from our own authenticity of what we actually know and how we can actually create a business that's unique to us with our own unique strategy or method or whatever it is, because we're trying to show up the way that we're supposed to show up. But that's not really what it, like there's unique solutions for each person. And what's actually going to make you succeed as a business owner is being who you are, because there's a lot of competition out there, but when you show up as your own true self, that's what's going to set you apart and make people want to buy from you in particular.
For
So I
sure.
think that that can really hold you back in that way too, of just being authentic.
Yes, it does. And also, you keep doing this research and you keep seeing how people have put out all of this content or how they're doing all of these things. And so then you just compare yourself to them as well. And you're just
Mhm.
like, well, I'll never be that, or I'll never be good enough in that sense. So, yes, I totally agree with you there.
Yeah. So you mentioned that there was 5 different types of imposter syndrome. Do you mind kind of breaking those down for us?
Yes, of course. So just a disclaimer, you could be experiencing some of like all of them at once, or you could be experiencing some now and then like a new situation arises in your life or something that you haven't been faced with, and then a different imposter syndrome sort of you're experiencing that. So don't feel like you're wrong if you like resonate or feel like you have all five of the imposter syndromes. But the first one is the perfectionist. So the perfectionist is exactly what it says, is you trying to make everything perfect so that you know that you feel good enough. The second one is the superwoman or man, but mostly I feel like moms experience this because we feel like we need to be everything. So it's when you find downtime really stressful, and I'm not saying other people don't experience this, but I have seen it a lot amongst the moms. Like you find downtime really stressful, you don't want to, when you spend time with kids, you just can't switch off from work. You answer emails or clients or like take calls or do whatever in times that you're supposed to be resting out of like your working hours. So you just like go all the time and you just feel on all the time. So that's the superwoman. Then there's the natural genius, which is the one that I have experienced the most, but I've experienced all of them as well. And that's when you found things naturally easy to do previously, and now like you struggle to do things or take on challenges because you're just so scared that you don't get it right on the first try, and you have to get it right on the first try, otherwise you're not good enough. And the fourth one is the soloist. So you feel like you have to do everything on your own, otherwise you're not good enough. And that's sometimes like if you have a team, so if you're running a business and you have like team members and things like that, and you're struggling to delegate, you're usually the bottleneck in that team because you're not allowing others to like take on their role fully or do the things that they're good at doing, and you focus on the things that you're good at doing because you feel like you should be doing this on your own. And then the fifth one is the expert. So you don't feel like you can move forward or you're good enough if you don't have all of the information. So if you're like doing all of the certifications, you are doing all of the research before you put out content or before you do it, talk to people or whatever the situation is, then you are experiencing the expert imposter syndrome. Also what happens is like you're afraid to look stupid. So if somebody's asking you a question, you don't want to answer it or even ask questions because you're just afraid, like, what is that going to look like when you do that? And you're doing all of this because you don't feel good enough. So it's kind of like symptoms that you have to try and make yourself feel good enough. And those are the 5 different types.
Yeah, I mean, the expert one I feel is so prevalent in the world of health and wellness entrepreneurs. You'll see constantly. I mean, I was also in the same boat, was how many credentials can I have behind my name? I constantly need to be taking the next course to teach me the next thing. And, I think knowledge is powerful. And I think those credentials do mean something. But at the same time, like, you don't have to wait to get all those to get started. Like, there's credentials are empowering, but also like experience is worth so much more. So it's just getting started and then letting the credentials follow. But I feel like I resonate. I've definitely felt all of these in my years of being an entrepreneur. But one question I had for you is I feel like back when I had my nutrition practice, um I felt the imposter syndrome much more than I feel now in my business, which is kind of interesting because I would almost think that it would be reversed. But when you're seeing people with imposter syndrome, are you seeing that there's like different levels that they show up? Like there's a range of how people are experiencing each of these different types?
Yes, I see the intensity differ. So there's sort of almost debilitating imposter syndrome where they just not doing hardly doing anything because they don't feel like they don't feel worthy of it, they don't feel like they're good enough. And then there's also the ranges in terms of which imposter syndrome you feel the most. So for example, I also have a client who's a health coach, and she is definitely as well experiencing the expert imposter syndrome more than the others, and showing up like what she's saying important, like she feels like is what she's saying important? Like, do people actually want to hear what she has to say? Like, is she saying the right thing? Like, a lot of that also has to do with how she's speaking and how she's showing up, because it has to be meaningful and it has to be intelligent for her to
Mm.
say things, and it can't just be like jokes or fun or whatever the situation is, which is definitely quite interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's because, especially in the world of like unlicensed practitioners and coaches, we're constantly trying to compare ourselves or maybe sound smart enough to measure up in the eyes of like a doctor or something along those lines. Even though when it comes down to it, we're completely different scopes of practice. Like we, as a health coach or a nutritionist, you're not going to be the same as a doctor. You're not going to see patients or clients the same way. And so you need to just understand that like you are unique, you are showing up in a different way. And also like probably goes hand in hand with your experience with branding is that the personality is your brands. Like when
Yes,
like it's so much more than just the color palette. It's actually like
exactly.
who you are showing up. So yes, it's all about the expertise to some degree, but it's also like you uniquely
Yeah,
being you. Mhm.
exactly. Like, I just take like the physiotherapist that I like using, and like, I don't like going to anyone else just because of who she is, and like how she treats me and all of those things. So it definitely is like, just because somebody else is out there doing the same thing as you doesn't mean that you can't get clients, because you will get them because of who you are and your personality and things like that. So that's definitely so true.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, when it comes to these five different types, can you kind of share some information on how people can overcome these imposter syndromes and
Yeah.
like what kind of tools you would offer them?
Yeah, so I think the big part of like anything in our businesses is becoming more self-aware. I think if we can just practice being more self-aware, like, a lot will go better, and we will show up differently, and we'll be able to do so much more and get so much further, so much faster. Um, and that it's always a journey, like, we're always working on that. So the first thing I would really recommend is that you look at what's happening in your mind. You're managing your mind, you're sort of journaling, you're understanding what are the thoughts that are driving your actions, so that you can mirror that back. The best way to do that is to write it down, because then it gets mirrored back to you, and you kind of go, oh, that's interesting, I am thinking this thought. So always like staying curious as to like, why are you thinking that, what is happening for you, and what why did that come up, type of thing. So curiosity is really, really important. But the first thing is to become aware, so that you can then work from it. And that's sort of the hardest part. Like, once you've got the awareness, then you can actually start doing something with it, right? So and then you can firstly start asking yourself a couple of questions. So questions would be like, what am I scared of getting wrong? And like, where am I holding myself back? And what would I be doing if nothing could go wrong? If there's like no consequence, no rejection, like nothing that could go wrong, like, what would I be doing? How would I be showing up? And who would I be being? Is that how you say it? So, right, like, who are you being if nothing can go wrong? And those are such great questions to ask, because it really gives you an indication of what type of imposter syndrome you're experiencing as well, right? So like, where am I holding myself back? Like, I am procrastinating because I keep researching things, right? So I
Mhm.
don't feel like I know enough. What would I be doing differently if I knew nothing would go wrong? Like, I would show up and share my opinion. I would share things that I find funny, even though it might not be exactly business related, for example. Like, I would offer to do speaking engagements. I would go out and help so many more people, because a lot of the times we have these fears that are actually holding us back, right? We're not good enough. They're going to reject us. They're going to say these things about me, or disagree with what I have to say, things like that. So to start and be curious. So that's the one piece. Another one, and then like each different imposter syndrome also has like different tools that you can use to help you with that specific imposter syndrome. So for example, with the certification one, you would want to have somebody to help you be accountable for like going and registering for a new certification, right? So you want like a coach or somebody that you trust, and you go like, I'm thinking of doing this thing, and you can excuse me, ask them. They can ask you like, is this a distraction from what you should be focusing on, or is this really necessary? And they could also tell you like, they don't think you need that right now, they think you need to be doing X, Y, and Z. So that's also really helpful, and that's also why we want coaches to help us see like the main reason why we're trying to do certain things, why we're getting distracted, right? So
Yeah.
that would be one of them. And then another thing is one that's generally for all of them is to have like a journal or a file or something saved somewhere of like all of the compliments that you've gotten, or the reviews, or just things that light you up, right? That show you and that prove to you that you are good enough. Because if you feel like you're not good enough, your brain is only going to look for that evidence, right? Even though your day was okay or it was really good, you're going to see all of the things that happened in the day that made you not good enough, right? So you want to have that file. And if somebody gave you a compliment on how they feel so much better after being treated by you, or how they a review on whatever it is, or like you did really well in a certification, even that, like whatever it is, you keep that on file and you try and read that as often as possible. But not only reading that and collecting that, you also want to feel it in your body, because when we also changing our thoughts, because our thoughts create our actions, right? And our actions create our results. We want to have thoughts that we feel in our body is true. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to think that I'm going to be super successful, right? Your whole body is going to kind of have like a little reaction to that if you don't truly believe it, right? So when we reading those wins or those reviews or those great comments, you want to try and sit for as long as possible and feel the good feeling that it makes you feel. And the more you can practice that feeling, the better you're able to see how you are good enough, the evidence that you can find that you are good enough, and that people want to come to you, and that you are good at running your practice or whatever the situation is. So that is really, really very helpful if you can do those things.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like along with what you were saying, it's like taking the time to really recognize those thoughts that are going on and rewriting them, because so often it's something that happened to us that someone else said that wasn't even necessarily true about us, that we're holding as a belief now, that that's the way that we are. And it could be like literally one sentence that happened 15 years ago and you're still holding on to it. And it's really important to recognize that. And we live in such a world where we're constantly distracted. I mean, I know personally, I'm like constantly listening to music or podcasts or listening to podcasts. And when I take the time to just turn that all off and like, let's actually just be alone with our thoughts, then you're able to recognize those thought patterns a little bit better and actually identify them and think back to like, okay, where did this form and why am I holding on to this?
Yeah, it's so good. It's really, it's so helpful also, because like when you learn when to rest, and you learn when to take action, and you learn to sort of analyze the results that you're getting and see where is it coming from, what is creating that, like why are you showing up in that way. And it's so powerful and so empowering as well, because you actually have control over what's happening. You're not just sitting there and going, oh well, nobody is booking with me, or whatever the situation is. You're actually going, okay, like what have I not done, like where have I got control over this, and how can I go and shift that and take control back. That, I think that's so empowering.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that I mean, the thing is that the world is kind of open, like we put these thoughts in our mind like we're not good enough, but really we're just against a bunch of people who are literally our peers. Maybe some people have more experience or have a different background, but at the end of the day, the difference between you and someone else and whoever succeeds is literally just the person that believes in themselves the most and is willing to do the work and do what needs to happen, no matter how scary that is or whatever thoughts are coming up in the back of your head.
So true, yeah. And sometimes the people who are just has that confidence, they're just speaking out more than the other people. And some of the people who are really, really good at what they do, they're just not speaking up more. So people just don't know about them as much. It's so fascinating to see
Yeah.
that. And I think it can change. I think confidence is something that you can take charge of, and you don't have to sit and wait for it to come your way. You can build up your own confidence and find that evidence that you are worth all of this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I would love to know if you could give one piece of advice to um, a new starting entrepreneur. They're just getting started in their business, whether that's health and wellness or whatever industry it might be. What is the number one piece of advice that you would offer them?
Um, so do I just have to give one? I'm just joking.
You
There's
can
so
give more if
many.
you want. I know, sorry, that's like
That's
a loaded question that I just kind of threw on
good.
you. As many as you like.
So I think as an entrepreneur, the first thing you want to learn is to manage your mind. I think if I knew about mindset so much earlier, like I wouldn't have like overthought like what to charge and how to charge it, and setting boundaries around my times and how I manage clients and things like that, and also just how I show up and taking more action. That would be like the one piece. Like it's so valuable to do those things, and it will help you so much when you can start early on in your business with mindset and self-awareness and things like that. The second piece I would say is, if you're doing marketing, just do as much networking at first as you possibly can. Like the more people you know, the faster you can grow. Like people get caught in the trap of like content creation, and that like you just post on social media and it will make you go viral and you'll have so many clients. But that is a long-term game where we're nurturing people. So really go out and meet more people. And then thirdly, I would definitely say invest in a coach. Like it is so valuable to help somebody like reflect back what's happening for you and help you problem solve. Like it is so empowering. It is so good to be able to move forward, because you're not stuck in your own head, like wondering whether you should be doing this or that, or like how to manage this situation and this client and this thing. So yeah, those would be my three. I'll stick to three.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with all three of those.
So
Yeah.
good.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. Do you want to just let my audience know where they can find you if they want to work with you or just learn more about you, follow along with you on Instagram or whatever it is?
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun. I am on Instagram. That's the easiest way to get hold of me. I'm my handle is laurensmit.com02. So you're welcome to come there and send me a DM. And I love connecting with everyone. So that would be the easiest place to find me.
Awesome. I love that. Well, thank you so much again. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you are wanting more support throughout your marketing efforts and to have a place to collaborate with other health and wellness entrepreneurs, then I would really recommend that you join us over in the Facebook group. I'm going to connect that link down in the show notes, but that is going to be the Profitable Practitioner private community on Facebook. And then if you enjoyed the show, please send it to a friend who would also enjoy it and give us a rating and review. That really helps so much just to spread the word about the podcast and get it to other ears who could also benefit from all the great conversations we have here and this community that we are growing.